Welcome. For this assignment, I had students create a podcast using Soundtrap where they argued their points over if students in middle school should or should not have recess. In the beginning, my main point was to just gauge student knowledge over podcast, and we had a class discussion talking about what a podcast was, where a podcast could be heard, and then why would you or the student be listening to a podcast. After our class discussion, I gave students a few different types of podcasts so that they could go in and listen to, with the purpose of them listening for what type of sounds do podcasts include, and then also what are some different ways that podcasts are structured. I had them go in and complete a graphic organizer to keep their thoughts all together so that way when they started working on their podcast, they would have these things in mind. The focus of this assignment is the podcast itself, so I started them off with a framework planner that would walk through how much time they would need on each and what structure they would need to follow and what different parts were needed as well in the podcast. Once they finished the framework organizer, they did get into groups and they started researching both sides of the argument. Once they finished the research for both sides of the argument, I had the students work together to create a script where they also had to label and organize it into who was speaking and how much time was being used for each topic and conversation. And here is one of the group's final products of their Soundtrap.
Hello, we are Savannah.
Aurelia.
And welcome to the AAS show.
The subject of today will be whether or not middle schoolers should have recess.
I think that middle school should provide recess for students. After elementary, they think that we don't need to go outside and play because we're teenagers, but that's not the case.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should be provided recess as well. I mean, we play all day, and the only physical activity that we get is PE, dance, or athletics. But that's different from recess.